Colby Covington has quickly become known as the UFC's most hated fighter, from completely switching up his personality to destroying an entire country after a fight. This is the story of Colby "Chaos" Covington. Colby Ray Covington was born in 1988 in Clovis, California, and as a purebred American, he was known for excelling in one of the most intense combat sports, wrestling. He spent his school days grinding on the wrestling mat, trying to be the best wrestler in the world and fighting against the bullies he was exposed to.
When I got to high school, I got bullied a lot, and then I realized in high school it was my passion to fight.
Another important detail in today's story is his graduation with a bachelor's degree in sociology in 2011, which will later come to the fore in his MMA career and answer many questions about his evolved character. After leaving school, he was lucky to meet Dan Lambert, who brought him to the famous American Top Team in 2011 to help his fighters take wrestling to a new level.
We were looking to increase the wrestling presence at our gym and came up with an idea to go out, reach out to some guys who recently graduated, some high-level wrestlers from college, and he was one of the guys that sent in an application, and he came down and tried out, and didn't take us long to see that he had a lot of potential.
Colby's first job was also his first love, wrestling. But the truth is that the reign of money in this field is quite scarce. Colby was broke, but his wrestling mentality prevented him from drowning in that debt. Upon his arrival at American Top Team, he met Jorge Masvidal, and a special relationship was born between them. The two were the best MMA duo of dreams. Colby's wrestling skills were beneficial to Jorge, who was a supreme striker, and vice versa. From the day that they met, they were inseparable. They even lived together at Masvidal's home, cooked together, and trained together.
Jorge Masvidal, my best friend, I train with him a lot, so I just work with my buddy Jorge Masvidal. Can't thank him enough for what he did for me.
Training with the MMA beast, Covington tested himself and realized that fighting was going well for him. An idea for a new career was born in Colby. He sailed the Pro MMA in 2012. It took him only 5 fights to get a UFC contract.
Some barriers you just don't cross. You don't talk about religion, you don't talk about race. You know, those are lines I'll never cross.
Colby, who was still modest and kind, impressed in his UFC debut, submitting his opponent with punches. The not-so-common finish was accompanied by a submission victory, and then he presented to everyone with his relentless style and high pace to tie the third victory with a decision. Unfortunately for him, none seemed to care about him being an awesome fighter. The end of 2015 brought him his first defeat, which spoiled his perfect 8-fight winning streak. Covington's wrestling backfired, and his carelessness to protect his neck in the middle of a takedown was his doom. Submitted in the first round, Covington was devastated and disappointed. He returned in style with 4 consecutive victories until the middle of 2017. Despite his undeniable success in the cage, Covington was threatened with dismissal.
You know, he's a guy who was going to beat just about everybody that he fights, but his style was not very exciting. And after the fight, Sean came up to me and just basically said, hey man, he's got 1 fight left on his contract.
The UFC labeled him uninteresting, his style boring, and bad for business, telling his manager that they would not re-sign him. Imagine being a 15-1 fighter without a chance to extend your contract. What path should he take to stay in the promotion? This is where Covington's sociology degree comes into play. The fight that was supposed to be the last in his UFC contract took him to Brazil against the local fighter and well-known BJJ master Damian Maia.
I should have knocked him out! Brazil, you're a dog! All you filthy animals suck!
He beat the Brazilian legend and then brilliantly ran for the exit before the translator would tell the audience how he addressed them. That didn't stop the crowd from throwing stuff at him though, because they probably understood the main part. You must be wondering what Chaos got with this move. Playing the Chael Sonnen card was the moment that saved his career. In the next fight, Colby got Rafael dos Anjos as an opponent and an interim title shot. Like every martial arts test so far, he passed with excellent marks and became the interim champion. Although he managed to save his job at the last minute, tensions arose at the ATT gym between Colby and his best friend Jorge Masvidal. It's difficult to conclude what exactly happened. Luckily, Coach Dan Lambert came out for an ESPN interview and told a non-biased story.
Yeah, there was an issue with the coach, and a dispute came out about Colby working with him because through George and not paying him after a fight. George took it the wrong way. George got involved, and I guess some words were exchanged, and from that point forward, there was heat between those two.
Dustin, Joanna, Jorge, Jorge, and other local fighters from ATT Gym became the target of his vile speech. It started to disrupt order and discipline. Coach Lambert was worried it could escalate because they regularly had to separate him in training. Dan, as an experienced coach, he set an ultimatum. No bad talking about each other or you are out. Covington was supposed to unify the title against Tyron Woodley. However, he had to undergo nasal surgery and was unable to compete, which resulted in him being stripped of the title. That didn't stop him from walking around with the belt and claiming to be the real champion. He would do anything to piss people off. Upon his return in 2019, he defeated his former training partner and former UFC champion, Robbie Lawler. In the post-fight interview, he delivered a low blow.
Let's talk about the lesson we learned tonight. It's a strong lesson that Robbie should have learned from his good buddy, Matt Hughes. You stay off the tracks when the train's coming through, Junior. Don't matter if it's a Trump train or the Colby train. Get out the way!
This didn't sit well with the fans, who hated him more and more. They wondered what happened to his humble version and if anyone could show up to stop him, because things were getting out of hand and Colby was near impossible to beat. Only one man stood between him and the real welterweight title. It was Kamaru Usman, and Colby decided to make the most out of this situation on the mic.
Keep using your time to promote me. That's why you're a mark.
Yo, you want to talk? You talk
Junior,
trash
settle
on
down,
Twitter.
Junior.
See, we lift.
You ain't ready for prime time yet, son?
As the fight got closer, fewer and fewer people were rooting for Colby, and more people wanted Usman to beat him down. Unfortunately for Covington, who turned into a real villain, he was forced to eat everything he said. An amazing fight that went back and forth for 5 rounds was a real treat for the spectators with a happy ending. Usman pulled off one of the most fan-favorite moments we call when trash talk goes wrong. After a 24-minute war, he broke Colby's jaw with brutal jabs, and a broken Covington ran from the cage back to the locker room after the TKO loss. Many thought this was the end of him, but things only got hotter. Instead of fighting, he used his vile tongue to get back into the title picture. Colby did not return to the cage until September 2020, where he defeated another former champion by TKO, Tyron Woodley, whose career was in decline. However, problems knocked on the American top team's door again. Colby and Jorge were the main actors, and Dan Lambert had enough.
Sent a group text to George and Colby and said, I liked you guys a hell of a lot better when you were broke and cared about the team instead of just yourselves. Neither one of you can come back, get the out of the gym. I hope you end up fighting each other and beating the living out of each other.
Jorge could not come to terms with this decision and was out of the gym for only 2 to 3 months. Then he came back again. On the other hand, Colby respected the coach's words and found a new MMA team in Florida called MMA Masters. Colby said it was Dustin Poirier's blame that he was kicked out of the gym. The commitment of this man to make drama out of everything and create problems and tensions was truly incredible. However, Covington then had to commit to a rematch with Kamaru Usman. People were infuriated that he got a title shot after 1 win, but he knew what he was doing and which way to go. He let the madness into the microphone once again.
We live 20 miles apart and we have mutual friends. If it's beef, we can do it.
And no
all
one gives
day.
a about you. Dana White,
All
man,
day.
no one cares about you. You're a nobody.
The fans, regardless of the hatred towards him, were still glued to this fight. This fight was not even close to the last one, and Usman was convincingly better. This time, Colby was able to hold on until the judge's decision, but the karmic fist did its job once again through Kamaru Usman. The Nigerian Nightmare delivered punishment to Covington for his wrongdoings. Everyone was glad when he finally came out of his chaotic persona when he whispered in Kamaru Usman's ear, "It's all love. You know I'm just trying to sell it for you. Go get your money." In the eyes of many, this touching moment looked like a moment of repentance. Some were secretly looking forward to modest Colby in the next fight. Even after 2 failed title shots, Covington never thought of giving up. The beatings failed to knock the chaos out of him. Given that the UFC thrives on disagreements between fighters, the matchmakers took advantage of this situation and paired him up with one man of special importance in today's story. This matchup did not require the welterweight title to provide big pay-per-view numbers.
It is exceptional because typically it's got to be some big name guys with a big storyline behind them, and we have that here with Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal.
During the build-up for the fight, all hell broke loose. Masvidal claimed that Colby lived with him without $1, sleeping on his couch, and still owed money to his boxing coach. According to him, Colby sold friendship for fame. Colby had a completely different story. Even more so, he went full drunk McGregor mode, poking at Jorge's wife, kids, mother, and legal troubles. On top of this, he claimed that Jorge was a liar.
You forget about your children, you deadbeat dad. You a deadbeat. Maritza paid for our... You're a handout little...
Who needs a title fight when you could have two best friends turned into super enemies blasting each other? When fight night finally came, it was a banger for 25 minutes. Jorge got manhandled for 5 rounds. Not only did Colby prove that he is physically and skill-wise a better fighter, but also much more intelligent. It was evident that Masvidal was overwhelmed by fury, and he let it get the best of him. From the beginning, he wanted to take Colby's head off, which tired him out very quickly. This was a great field for Covington, whose cardio proved to be relentless so far, leading him to victory. Security guards had to separate them even after the last bell. Masvidal swallowed the bitter pill.
It just sucks because this idiot talked about my kids, you know. He's still somebody, if I see him out in the streets, I'm gonna give him everything I got to break his jaw, you know. It doesn't matter if I lost wrestling scrambles tonight. I still think he's a you know?
The drama continued just 15 days after the fight. Covington's friend posted an Instagram story of him, claiming that Colby was the king of Miami and they were out celebrating. However, he made a mistake and tagged the location. It didn't take long for Masvidal, who lives in Miami, to put on a black hoodie and locate his enemy to punish him for public words. Accordingly, he waited for Colby outside, gave him a few pieces with a soda, and fractured his teeth before he fled the scene. MMA fans were not enthusiastic, precisely because he could not do this in a fair fight. They characterized this behavior as cowardly, and Jorge was arrested 2 days later and charged with aggravated battery and criminal mischief. The fans were not enthusiastic about Colby's actions either. They agreed that Masvidal is not a man with whom you can use trash talk in business and expect that he will not find you in the dark alley.
What happened with you and Colby?
He's a bro, and he showed his true colors for the money, for the pay-per-view. He'd talk about my kids, my family, to maybe sell extra pay-per-views. Not friends. I was fucking everything, his mentor. I was already in Strikeforce. I had competed against Gilbert Melendez. I was an established pro when he came over to American Top Team. I was living up at American Top Team. I had an apartment over there for like about a year and change. He broke his hand. His girlfriend had kicked him out of the place because he had given her herpes. No, I'm serious. So he had like nowhere to live, so he asked if he could crash on my couch. I was like, yeah, bro, we're both on this journey together. We train together, we play poker together. I basically fed this dude for a year, lived on my couch, didn't give me $1 because he didn't have a job. I had a broken hand. It's all documented. It's all him on YouTube saying, Jorge Masvidal was my best friend. If it wasn't for Jorge, I wouldn't be here.
Covington is now down to one last march and one more drama in his final fight, but he didn't return until December of 2023. He suffered brain damage from Masvidal's assault. For literally 50 minutes, Kamaru Usman smashed his head. Yeah, Jorge's punches on the street were the reason for his brain damage. Covington, who at one point almost lost his UFC career, now had incredible privileges. And for the third time in 4 years, he is getting a title shot. UFC matchmaking logic has left every chat by now. After Leon Edwards dethroned Kamaru Usman with a spectacular high kick and then defended the title against him, he found himself face to face with chaos in the last event of 2023. Edwards is a fighter who had a difficult childhood and a troubled past. His father, who was a gang leader in Jamaica, was killed when Leon was just a boy.
Now I'm bringing you to 7th layer hell. We'll say what's up to your dad while we're there.
Oh!
When you have guys with troubled past like Jorge and Leon, it's like a jackpot for Colby to wreak havoc at press conferences. Leon received a dose of the same poison as his predecessors. It was clear to everyone that this was a fight game business, but no one remained indifferent to his comments. Not the fans, not the fighters, and not even Dana White.
Colby is an utter piece. If you know Colby on a personal level, he over everybody he knows. And him making fun of Leon's dad, that is the biggest move you can do.
We're in the fight games, lots of mean things are said, and one of the things that I really don't like is when you start going after family, and whether it's the kids, the wife, parents, it's just such a nasty thing to do.
The welterweight champion is not emotionally unstable and is hard to mentally play with. However, believe it or not, when the press conference was over, Leon couldn't hide the tears he shed backstage. Colby used his father's death for entertainment. In the fight, it was clear that he was not the same fighter who he was in the previous battles. And the reason for this is that he broke his foot in the first 30 seconds. This happened with the first kick he threw, and Edwards blocked it with his elbow. This completely crippled him for the next 25 minutes and gave him a rough night. This was the last time we saw Colby in the cage. He didn't just eat his words again, but he had a terrible performance like never before. Even after losing to Edwards, Colby indeed took his warlike fingers to social media, where he called out Ian Gary, who was more than willing to deal with him. On the other hand, he also called out Dustin Poirier. the man for whom he was allegedly kicked out of ATT. But the Diamond showed his dignity and made a quality comment similar to Masvidal's.
I'll never fight Colby in an octagon. If I fight Colby, we're both going to jail. I'm going to jail. I'm not going to fight him in an octagon. He's not making money off of my career and what I've done. This is something different, you know. You will never see me fight Colby Covington in the UFC.
Colby, as a man with a sociology degree, 100% knew what he was doing. Chaos used that to create a character that would become famous and great for promotion. True, in return, he received hatred from fans and colleagues, but it didn't matter to him whether he would be remembered for good or bad. As long as they talked about him and Googled his name, even out of hate, Colby is winning. He gained fame, but he lost friendships. He got undeserved title shots, but got beaten and punished. He kept his job and raised pay-per-view numbers for himself and his opponents, but the cost proved too high. Even his parents did not enjoy his transformation. Safe to say, they were disappointed.
Weren't you saying like your parents didn't really understand your whole persona at first?
Dude, I got so many fucking calls from them just screaming at me. I can't believe you fucking called the Brazilians filthy animals. I didn't raise you. I should fucking wash your mouth out with soap. I was like, Mom, they were acting like filthy animals.
Now, he has gotten to the point where few people want to fight him. Not because he is a tough matchup, but because fighters simply don't want to go through the same turmoil as his former opponents. When the cameras go off, Colby turns into a completely normal and soft-spoken man, but unfortunately, few can see it.
I had to do something drastic that was going to get the fans and everybody hyped up, and that's what I did. Whether you hate me or love me, you're going to tune in to watch me.
That would be it from this crazy story, and you can learn that everyone gets what they deserve in the end. Whoever plays with the devil can be sure to lose. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.